All right. Wrong screen. Okay. Welcome to episode 5 of the MoCo Mike Live podcast. The podcast discussing Montgomery County, Maryland, and beyond issues where you are part of the show. I'm your host, Jason Makstein. Today we have a special student-centered episode with current MCPS SMOB student member of the board, Praneel Suvarna, and the 2 finalists for next year's SMOB, Peter Boyko and Anuva Maloo. For this episode, we'll start with Praneel explaining some basics about the SMOB position, followed by some questions which are based on those submitted by our audience in years past and anything else. Then we'll take some time to answer questions and comments from people live during the stream. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Praneel to get started.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Praneel Suvarna, the current student member of the board for Montgomery County Public Schools and the 47th student member of the board. So just a little bit about the position. This is one of the few positions in the entire nation where a student gets a full vote on the Board of Education and is completely elected by their peers. So all 6th through 12th grade students can vote, including seniors. Voting will occur Wednesday, April 23rd. And it will happen during the school day, with results being released after the school day ends, closer to around 7 or 8. This is really a very meaningful position for students. It's a chance for students to really have a direct say in their education and the things that happen. It's important to note that within the role of the Board of Education, there is kind of like two different layers to the role of the student member of the board, right? You have the role of a Board of Education member where you serve and you make decisions on the board, but also a big part of being a student member of the board is representing the students at the board table and then also relaying that information back to students and making sure that student voice is heard that way. So communication is definitely a big priority. It's really a very unique thing that we have here in Montgomery County. Most other counties in Maryland have a student member of the board, but not all of them have voting rights and very few have full voting rights. We are actually one of very few in the state to actually have full voting rights. And again, one of very few in the nation to have voting rights at all, or even just a student member, just generally. So I'm very excited for these candidates here today to answer some of these questions for you all. And I hope you guys listen to them carefully and make an informed decision for your vote on April 23rd.
All right. Thank you, Praneel. And with that, but wrong. Okay. With that, I'm going to start getting into a couple questions. I may disappear at times to give the students a full screen. So these are kind of some short questions, and I know these first couple have maybe been in the news a bit lately, but do you support reinstating final exams? Sorry, we'll start with Peter, and then we'll go back and forth. Who's going to go first?
Okay, perfect. So like you said, I think this has been in discussions recently about reinstating final exams from a student perspective. And since the SMOB is tasked with representing student voices, I don't know if most students would be in favor of reinstating final exams. I think there needs to be conversations with students, with parents, with community members if we want to make such a huge shift. I believe in focusing more on instructional learning and teaching rather than testing. And I think also there's a huge mental health burden when it comes to testing as well. So when we talk about final exams, I think that we need to have more conversations around that, especially from students, since students are the ones taking these exams. But also I think we kind of already see final exams in some shape or form already. If you're a high school student, you're most likely taking an AP or IB course, and at the end of the year there's a final exam that you have to take. So that's already some form of a final exam that we see. And then we also see that we have new Maryland State Department of Education end of course standards that have been implemented recently. So I think we have some shape and form already of final exams in our county, and if we want to go further with that, we need to have more conversations with students.
Okay, great. Thanks. Anuva?
Yeah, I really do agree that I think that because the students are the ones that are being affected the most, we need to discuss and actually define what a final exam is going to be, what a midterm is going to be. Because the truth is, yes, school is supposed to set us up for life, for college and all that, but the amount of mental stress, honestly, I myself experienced studying for APs, even right now, what I'm going through studying for my APs that I have in May, it's incredibly stressful. It's a big mental burden. And the truth is that until they fully define what a final exam is, I am not going to say I 100% support it from a student's perspective.
Okay, great. And, I think that's completely fair that you all are here to represent the students. So definitely, that's important. So, and then in the similar vein, do you favor the 50% rule? I think that they got rid of it formally and now are trying to make it countywide. Is that?
So I'll clarify here. So the current status within the report that we received back at the board table would impose stricter regulations on the 50% rule. So it would be more along the lines of, student would be able to receive a 0 for, work that they did not turn in, and then clarifying what the minimum standard is to receive a 50%. So it's not like you can turn in a page with, a couple of words on it and receive a 50%, but what is what constitutes a genuine try on the assignment. And that's for like assignments you would turn in, or like essays or things like that. It would still be intact for like multiple choice quizzes and things like that, where we already see that implementation. But that's just sort of a clarification on the current policy.
Okay,
or what the proposed policy, proposed regulation would be.
Okay, I think let's just skip through that one because I think that one seems like kind of ambiguous of what the question is. So, do you support a required financial literacy course, Anuva? Start.
Yeah, I actually do. I think that honestly speaking, school is supposed to set you up for life. And if I, got to learn such a successful skill, like knowing how to do taxes, understanding honestly how the economy works, I'm going to get a better setup in the future. And that's the truth. I also wanted to talk about how I want to push on that and so many other things like requiring home ec and a lot of other electives, which I think are super important for students because we need those life skills in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, so I do support a required financial literacy course with a couple modifications as well. I think right now our students are undertaking a lot of other credits and other graduation requirements. For example, a full year of health, which I don't believe is necessary. And we've seen a lot of students complain about that full year of health. And granted, there are a lot of graduation requirements. And I think our state needs to do a reevaluation on these requirements. And because the reality is the first couple years of high school, you're trying to get these requirements, and that leaves very little room for you to take classes that you're actually interested in. So I think if we do want to have a required financial literacy course, which I support, we need to look at limiting some of the other graduation requirements that might not be as necessary, such as a full year of health or stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with Anuva. I think financial literacy is the closest thing we can get for MCPS to truly say we're preparing students for college and career readiness. It's what every adult needs to know in the real world. And I often hear from students how they don't feel like schools are preparing students for the future. They don't feel like the content they're receiving is relevant for outside life. So I think financial literacy is a great course to truly prepare students for what it means to be an adult and thrive in adulthood.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Next question. Do you support SROs/CEOs being in schools?
So yeah, this is a very interesting question. SROs and CEOs are kind of two different things. SROs are armed police officers walking around the school building, if I'm correct, but CEOs are more so stationed police officers. I think I agree with the county's decision a couple years ago to get rid of SROs. And if you know me, you know I'm a strong advocate for school safety, but I don't think that having SROs in our building is contributing to a safe and comfortable learning environment. However, I think CEOs are helpful in terms of being stationed at a school but not walking around the school, in terms of if there is an incident that is serious and dangerous where police does need to be on the scene, especially for more rural communities where a police station might not be nearby. I think that CEOs can be beneficial there, but I also think our county needs to be looking into other safety and security investments and implementations, such as kind of the poor implementation of IDs at some schools, such as my school. I go to Northwest High School. We don't have an effective ID policy. And also looking at investments in maybe security technology or hiring more security guards, which I know are the budget that the county is currently approving includes. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you. Anuva?
I completely agree. I think that CEOs are especially needed in our day and age, especially with like the current times. But my only thing on that is that I want to support the Sensitive Protections Location Act bill, which is currently going on. It's something I testified in Annapolis about. Just with our current environment and what's going on like in this day and age, I think that there are a lot of immigrant students that are very concerned and very afraid, especially when it comes to, honestly, the truth is the police and our security and our safety. And as long as there is those stipulations and those requirements when it comes to these type of situations with these security guards and other situations, that they are being protected and their privacy is not being infringed upon, then I think that in that case, I would fully support it. Along with that, though, I do agree with Peter on the fact that we do need to improve our other forms of safety and regulations when it comes to, for example, making Narcan accessible and so many other situations with their IDs too. I think that our county is doing a great job with what we have currently, but it can be improved a ton. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is related to boundary studies. Rank the following factors to look at in terms of importance when discussing boundary studies: utilization, diversity, proximity, and assignment stability. And maybe I should briefly go over each one, which utilization is like the number of people at a school. So, if it can hold 2,000 and it's got 2,200, that would be a utilization problem. Diversity includes both racial diversity and socioeconomic status and other portions of that are measurable. And then proximity, how close you are to school, how long your bus ride is, how long your walk is, things like that. Are you in the walk zone? And then assignment stability is, we just changed the boundaries a few years ago. Are we going to change them again for the same cohort of students, or, are we going to wait a certain number of years to do it, or what have you? And I know this is a really tricky one, so and not easy. So, but I do feel it's important, particularly because we're in the midst of a boundary study. So
yeah. I 100% agree. Actually, this is like really personal for me because a little background about me. My home school is Paint Branch. I grew up in the NEC, and now I attend school at Montgomery Blair High School, which is around 35 minutes for me. It's an hour and 10 minutes of a bus ride after school coming back, let alone, it being rush hour and all that when it's 3:30 for me. And genuinely speaking, having to deal with that and proximity and utilization, I think would be my top areas that I would focus on, because at Blair, we're the largest school in the county. We have 3,500 students, and don't even get me started on schools like WJ, which have 3,400 students, and their building is around half the size of this. I mean, that's absurd. You're telling me every single day I have to go to school, deal with that, and along with that, I only have 6 minutes in between each bell to get to my next class, and then I'm penalized for being late. That's exhausting, and students aren't getting the attention that they deserve, especially when their class is one teacher to 30 kids. That's my first goal, I would say, is working on our utilization and where students are being distributed in their county. The second thing is proximity. As I mentioned before, I think the biggest issue comes down to programs. And a lot of these schools, which are getting students from a ton of different areas, they're going for those specialized programs. For example, at Blair, the magnet program. I go to a school 40 minutes away just for that program. But if that program was, for example, offered in an area like my school, at Paint Branch, at Springbrook, at Blake, these schools, which generally have a lesser population and tend to get less students from farther away because they do not have these programs, then I think that not only would boost the school's overall, representation, but also along with that, it would fix those problems with utilization and proximity. And again, that has to do with boundary studies, especially with Crown High School and Woodward coming up, which I think are an amazing idea. And I'm so glad that it's happening for my upper county peers. But the truth is that when it comes down to it, we need to talk about where our programs are in the county and this distribution when it comes to utilization and proximity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Anuva on this one. Utilization I would rank first, just because we do see overcrowding and overutilization at certain schools where the population is just unsustainable for that school, such as Walter Johnson. And I think with the new high schools of Crown and Woodward, that can help mitigate some of that overpopulation. And I think that's something we need to look at because it's also about the resources at the schools, the counselors, the how much time students have to talk to their teachers, or use the bathroom even. Like that overpopulation can have drastic impacts on a student's day-to-day life. And then also proximity. I agree. I think a lot of students have long commutes to school, especially if they're in certain programs. And then I think my third would be diversity. I hear oftentimes about how some schools have very fortunate booster clubs and others don't. And I think diversity and equity can play a role in that to make sure that all schools have adequate funding for certain extracurricular programs, whether that's athletics or arts. And I think diversity and equity would be the third, and then was it assignment stability?
Yeah, assignment stability is the fourth.
Yeah, and then I would probably rank that fourth. But these are all very important factors to consider, and I know we have a very important boundary study coming up. So I hope to take all of these 4 factors into consideration, and I hope the board as well does when designing the new boundary.
Okay, great. Thanks. Those both really good answers from both of you. So, so now subject MCPS discipline for the next couple questions. Do you think MCPS gives teachers and admin the ability to effectively discipline students?
That's a good question. I think MCPS does give admin and teachers the ability to discipline students, whether that's through detention or suspension. But I also think in addition to disciplinary practices, our school system should also be focusing on restorative justice, because we often see when a school suspends a student, that's not usually always solving the root of the problem, but whether it's through hate speech or a conflict that arises at a school, I think restorative justice can be a great way to eradicate any issues there and prevent any issues from continuing further. So I think I think right now our county is doing a good job at giving teachers and admin the ability to discipline students, but we can also go further through restorative justice. But then also we need to focus on better enforcing and implementing restorative justice at schools in the county.
Okay, thank you. Anuva?
I think that our county, I think they do a good job at giving our teachers and our administration the power that they need to keep kids on the right track. But one thing I am very against, honestly, has to do with expulsions and suspensions. In my opinion, a lot of the times these kids, and I've even had friends like this who are doing these sort of bad things or in these bad situations, a lot of times it's because of their home life or it's because of something external. It's not really because of what's going on in school, and that's their outlet. So telling kids to just expend them or just suspension them, tell them to go back home or wherever they are is not going to help them in the end. And in my truth, sorry, something just stopped.
You should. I think you're good.
Am I okay?
Okay.
In my opinion, honestly speaking, I don't think it's helping my friends. I don't think it's helping any of our students to just completely remove them from the situation. What is going on? To remove them from the situation. In truth, I think that what we need to do is have them sit down and talk to them and really truly help them and understand what's going on in their situations. Because honestly speaking, just telling kids you're doing something bad and sending them off without even explaining why is not helping. And that's my opinion on it. I think that, yes, teachers do have the right authority that they deserve because they are who we should respect. But the way that they handled expulsions, suspensions, and detentions is not handled well at all.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just doing a little trying to make it so that y'all are the same size and everything instead of
Okay.
you. So
I
I think
thought my thing was glitching out. I was
no, I was just a technical thing, and now I got the little logo on my face. So but that's fine. I'd rather have it be on my face than your face. So I think I have to be on the screen to be able to hear my voice. So I think this is a good arrangement for now. And I may pop off if you see it like flicking. It's just kind of me popping off and giving you all the full screen. So let's see. So the next question was going to be, what do you think is and isn't working as far as restorative justice and MCPS? Both y'all kind of touched on that already. So I think let's move on to the next question, which is and this is a little outdated, the numbers, because I'm still talking about numbers from almost a year and a half ago. But in our research of Montgomery County hate bias reports from a 16-month period ending in October 2023, 61% of all hate bias incidents in schools targeted Jews. What do you think can and should be done about the rise of anti-Semitism and other hate in MCPS?
Oh, okay. I think a really big thing we need to do is to train students and staff to be able to recognize this and what's going on. A lot of the times it's honestly really undercover and students don't see it, or even staff doesn't see it and notice it. So to be able to notice it and then be able to reach out to these students and know that they're comfortable enough to even speak to you, I think speaks volumes. Along with this, what I will say is that I do think that it's hard to approach a staff member if you are a student. At least from my perspective, my counselor has to deal with 250 other students. I can't go to them about every single one of my personal problems just because I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's why at all times as SMOB, what I will have open is an anonymous forum for students to report their concerns and their priorities. That way, my SAC, myself, and hopefully the Board of Education can all work together to really make sure your concerns are being heard, but also something is happening. Change is going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, I can take it over from and answer this question because I don't know where.
I don't know where you are.
But I agree with you, Anuva. I think training is very important for our educators to recognize signs of hate speech. And as SMOB, I also want to make it very clear that hate speech or hate in general has no place in our school buildings at all. And I think we can take multiple other approaches in addition to training, for example, education at an earlier age, teaching students in as early as elementary school the importance of inclusivity, acceptance, and welcoming others that may be seen as different. I think that education should be taught at a very early age. To instill lifelong habits. I also think our reporting needs to be a bit better. When I think some students are kind of discouraged by the current reporting process because it can be lengthy, it can be not the most efficient process. So I think I want to work with MCPS to figure out ways to make it more efficient and more easy for students to report hate speech or hate bias. And then also looking at disciplinary measures. Again, hate speech has no place in our schools. And I think, our students need to be disciplined if they do choose to engage in hate and hateful language. So those are, I think, training, education, disciplinary measures, and reporting are kind of the 4 areas where we can improve in terms of addressing hate speech.
Okay, thank you. I'm back. So the next question is, fentanyl deaths and ODs amongst teens have risen in recent years. What are your suggestions of how MCPS can deal with this growing epidemic?
Yeah, so this is a very serious epidemic as it puts youth lives on the line. In fact, in 2022, MCPS reported and Montgomery County reported that there was 37 youth overdoses in Montgomery County, which is an alarming number. And I know our current SMOB, Praneel, has done a lot around tackling the drug and opioid crisis by allowing or ensuring that security guards carry Narcan with them in the school building. but I also think we can do more in terms of Narcan distribution. So, for example, I think we can, instead of having Narcan distributed in nurses' office, I think we can distribute them more across schools, implement them closer to bathrooms, as most overdoses occur in bathrooms. But I think Narcan needs to overall be distributed across all secondary schools. And then finally, I think we should implement Narcan training into our health curriculum, both on the middle and high school level. Students should be trained with how to administer Narcan in the event that they see an overdose happen on school campus.
All right, thanks, Anuva.
Thank you so much for asking this. This actually hits really close to home because a big reason why I chose to run for SMOB in the first place is because I had a friend pass away due to overdosing. And I mean, this was a person who I saw my freshman year at a football game. I caught up with for a few minutes and thought, hey, 3 years from now, we'll catch up again. And then the next day I found out on Instagram that he's passed away. It's horrible to think about, but I really truly feel lucky to be here in the first place, to be able to talk to students, represent their voices, and also especially the students that are probably going through these similar situations that can't ever speak out about it because they don't feel comfortable with it. That's why a big thing I've always pushed on is working on what our past SMOBs have done. So Praneel currently trained all security guards with Narcan. I want to expand on this by making Narcan kits accessible to all students. But a big reason to do this, though, is because a big reason to make this happen is you have to make fentanyl strips first accessible to students. I think the Board of Education needs to see precedents. They need to see something that's working so that they can go past that and then are more inclined to make Narcan kits accessible to all students. Obviously speaking, the budget is going to be a bit slim next year, but it shouldn't cost too much. And in truth, I really, truly think that any form of help that we can do and anything that we can do to make students feel the comfort of safety is in their hands is important. Thank you.
Great, thank you both. And this is actually an interesting topic that I think has kind of come up recently when the article came out about the changes in the 50% rule and stuff like that. A lot of people were saying, well, what about, absenteeism issues? So what do you think should be done to help solve our absentee issues in MCPS? And I think we start with Anuva this time.
Yeah, so I think a really big issue when it comes to honestly absences and anything of that sort honestly has to do with transportation and also students feeling inclined to come to school, feeling motivated. I think a really big reason why students don't come to school in the first place is because they get really tired. Honestly speaking, they're burnt out. I mean, I myself am feeling that currently with SMOB. And I think giving us a time of place and time for break, especially when it comes to a mental health period, would really help solve that issue with attendance. Because if students knew that they had a break within schools, I think they'd be more inclined to come to school in the first place. And along with that, just catching up with work. A lot of students do extracurriculars, sports, activities, hobbies. They go to school for 8 hours. Then they have that after school practice, hobby, whatever, after school for a couple hours. And then they have a test the next day. Why would I want to go to school immediately the next day and just be burnt out again? If I got a small little break, I would take advantage of it. And I think that would also help a lot with absences. The second thing is it has to do with transportation. Honestly speaking, when it comes to snow days or even bad weather in the first place, I myself can't take the bus in the morning because it's an hour and 10 minutes just to get to school. I drive instead. But if it's snowing really hard or anything like that, I know my parents won't let me drive or anything of that sort to school. And that's why I think really looking at our bus routes, our bus stops in the first place, making sure they're at least within a mile of you and not more than that, or at least half a mile minimum, would really help students be more inclined to even attend school. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah. So first I want to say if someone's typing in the chat, I'm not able to respond to anything based on the platform I'm on, unfortunately. Sorry about that, but you can always reach out to me on social media if you have any questions. To answer the question around absenteeism, correct?
Yep. What do you think should be done to help solve our absenteeism issues in MCPS?
Okay. So I think when in regards to absenteeism, I think what I hear often at my school and what students talk about is that, oh, I have a test next period I'm not prepared for. I'm just going to skip and take another time, or I'm going to skip this class because I have to study for a test or something like that. I think if we have a wellness period installed weekly in our schools, it can allow for more time for students to study, catch up on work, relax, and take honestly a mental health break. Also looking at wellness half days, if that's another option as well, just to alleviate stress and alleviate the workload. I know this is an idea that has been brought up by former SMOBs many times, by student advocates across the county. So I think it's a great idea that is outlined in my platform on my website. And it's something our county needs to institute at all schools, all secondary schools. And I think allowing that time for students to take a mental health break, catch up on work, can reduce some of the absenteeism we're seeing among students across the county.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now we're on to kind of some more personal, open-ended questions. What role do you think parents should have in MCPS-related issues?
I think that's a great question. Obviously, the role of the SMOB is to represent students, but I think parents should obviously have a say in terms of conversations that are happening. I think one of my ideas are to increase town halls, to kind of do a partnership with the SMOB and the superintendent to do community town halls where students and parents and community members can come out and share their opinions on certain issues. I know one of my ideas is to expand my SMOB advisory council to elementary school students, but obviously elementary school students, most parents won't be comfortable just sending their elementary school student alone to these SMOB advisory councils. So I also want to invite parents to stay with their child and participate in these discussions where, hopefully guest speakers will be present, and we're going to be going over very important conversations in the community, in the school system. So I think in conversations such as town halls and SMOB advisory council meetings, parents can have a say, voice their opinion, and also collaborating with the MCCPTA to ensure parent voice is being accounted for.
All right, thank you, Anuva.
I would definitely like to talk about the fact that our community meetings, I think, are a great idea, and it's something that's already implemented currently with the Board of Education. I recently actually attended one on behalf of my organization in December, NDAC, and it was hosted at Paint Branch High School, luckily 5 minutes away from me. And I had a great time. It was very personable. I got to speak to the superintendent and another board member and even the president of the Board of Education as well, Julie Yang, about my personal experiences. But also what I was baffled and astonished to see was that there were more adults than there were students at this meeting. Adults were advocating on behalf of their kids about their rights and what they wanted for their students, which I think is an incredibly important thing to see. And that's why I really want to push on these community meetings and making them placed in more accessible areas. Along with that, I also want to talk about the fact that I think a lot of the times parents are incredibly busy and they can't just take the time out of their day, let alone students going to somewhere that's like around 30 minutes away just to attend a meeting for 2 hours. And that's why with the anonymous form that we'll have open at all times for students to fill out so that their priorities and their concerns are being heard, I will also have one for parents as well so that they can fill it out if there's something going on with their students. I know a lot of the times kids don't really feel comfortable going with their parents to places, and that's why their parents will have that form of access. So that's not just directly through their student for them to speak to me, but also the Board of Education as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I just wanted to also say, there's some spam comments, and what I've done is I've muted people that were spam commenting so that, or gave them a timeout, so they basically won't be able to continue to spam the comments. So just, I would love to have some legitimate questions to ask these guys. And specifically questions that apply to everyone. But that's the point of this. So, I realize kids will be kids and there will be some other types of comments as well, but that's kind of what we're looking for. And if you can come up with a good comment that is, a legitimate question that concerns both of them, I will put up on the screen at the end and we'll have that discussion. So hopefully we get some of those. All right. So in the meantime, Okay, this is one of my favorite questions, actually. What issues do students find important that are not being discussed by MCPS, the Board of Education, and the county at large? Essentially, what's something that students find really important that the adults are not, basically, talking about? Are we on Anuva? Is that? I think you spoke last, and then you go again.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm like,
sorry.
you cut out for me, and then I was like, I'm just gonna hope he says it again when Peter does.
Okay. Yeah. So, what issues do students find important that are not being discussed by MCPS, the Board of Education, and the county at large?
One thing I would really like to bring up, I think, has to do with snow days and honestly transportation access to that. I feel like a lot of the times when I go on these school visits and, kids talk about unlocking bathrooms, they talk about the phone policy, very well-known things. But a big thing that's not talked about has to do with, I think, honestly speaking, transportation, our bus routes, making them more accessible to students, and a lot of other situations, especially when it comes to boundaries, for example, 8th grade students deciding where they want to go to high school and getting forced to go to a place that's like an hour away just for a program they want to attend. Different sorts of situations like that. Another thing also, I know that it's a big controversy currently with the grading policy, but I really do think that the SMOB, as Praneel has already testified upon, really implementing and enforcing the idea that we are not for final exams, because from a student's perspective, that stress burden is not good for us, and we do not have to handle that on top. We should not have to handle that on top of our AP final exams too. Thank you. Hello.
All right, Peter. Sorry.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yep. What issues do students find important that are not being discussed by MCPS, the Board of Education, and the county at large?
That's a great question. I feel oftentimes at board meetings, the Board of Education is very focused on test scores or grading or learning. But I think it's also important for the board and the superintendent to recognize that there are other issues that stretch far beyond the classroom and that must be prioritized. For example, school safety. I know we see school safety incidents arise a lot in the county, but I feel like our county is not doing enough to prioritize the issue of school safety incidents that put our lives on the line. Right now, our schools are extremely vulnerable, with students walking in and out of the building every 45 seconds or 45 minutes to catch a class in the portables. I feel like any stranger wearing a backpack could easily fit in to that cluster of students walking in and out of the building for portables or open lunch or stuff like that. And I think we could benefit from more security technology, whether that's piloting weapon detection systems at schools to ensure that weapons and strangers do not have a place inside school buildings. So yeah, that is one of my top priorities. School safety has always been one of my top priorities, and I feel like our county isn't doing enough to ensure that every school is safe and every student can feel comfortable and safe at school. So I think there's so much more we can do, and our county is just not prioritizing the issue as much as it needs to, since it's our lives on the line. But then also there's bathrooms. I know students have been talking about bathrooms a lot, but the county has not been talking or giving enough attention to the issues in our bathrooms. For example, how at most schools in the past, they were very frequently locked, but I know recently we've seen improvements with keeping bathrooms open, but then also the cleanliness of bathrooms and also the products in bathrooms. We oftentimes see products aren't stocked, such as toilet paper, pads, soap. We don't see that oftentimes in bathrooms, and I don't think our county's talking enough about it, and I think we need to invest more in it as well. So yeah, school safety and bathrooms, I think our board needs to prioritize more.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, good answers from both. So this next one's kind of a fun one. If the school board gave you $1 million to spend on any, program or project for schools as you wish, what would you do with that? And we're starting with Peter this time.
Yeah, so I feel like if you were to ask me that question like a month ago, I would probably tell you that with $1 million, we should invest more in security technology. But the reality is security technology is really, really expensive, and our budget is very, very tight and slim. So I think our county needs to be spending more for bathroom supplies. So when I go to school visits, when I talk to students, they always tell me that there's never any soap in the bathrooms, or there's never any pads. In fact, our county only spends $2 per female in terms of period products. I think our county should be investing more to keep bathrooms stocked, clean, functional, open throughout the year. And if you're a student watching this, you've probably seen the issues that persist daily in our bathrooms. I think with $1 million, our county could be spending more in terms of, having toilet paper, pads, soap, and other important implementations that can keep our bathrooms open, clean, and functional.
All right, thank you. So we do have a few more questions set, but I wanted to just kind of, there's a couple comments. So on Instagram, I just want to say Rob said transportation's key and burn is real. I think combination of wellness period, peace room is an excellent idea. I'd also allow for virtual days, which can allow kids to still attend school. And then we had a question from
Wait,
Esther Wells.
Answer the question.
What?
Oh,
I don't think I ever got to answer the last.
Didn't get to answer the last question.
That's my bad. Okay,
No,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
If
Go
we had
for
$1
it.
million, what would we do, right?
Yes. I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
And thank you for speaking up.
No, it's fine. I was like, is he gonna just like go through the other question and then ask me to speak again, or? So obviously speaking, I would focus on our bathrooms first off. I mean, there's no way that the county should be telling us to dictate when our bodies need to relieve themselves. And that's why I would first focus on getting them unlocked, getting our menstrual products working, making Narcan accessible. But along with that, also speaking for my middle schoolers, I know a lot of them can't take their Chromebooks home. And I honestly speaking, still use my Chromebook daily. That's literally what I'm using to join this right now. It's one of my only forms of technology. And I'm sure for many other students, it's like that as well. So making that accessible to all students so that they can take it home, and also have a lot of other websites unblocked at home that are for instructional use, such as YouTube. I've been a bit advocate for making that unlocked, because the truth is that I use Khan Academy, I use Organic Chemistry Tutor, I use so many of these amazing channels on the daily. And that's why I would very much push for that to be accessible to all students, and spending our money on that too. Finally, along with that, again, when it comes back to transportation and other issues like that, I would spend our money on that. But the truth is that $1 million might seem like a lot, but with a $3 billion budget, it's really not that much in the end. So any amount of money that we do get and we can spend on focusing on things that will change actively and immediately, such as our bathrooms, I would focus on immediately. Thank you.
Yep, and great points on how much $1 million sounds like, but
Yeah.
it really isn't in the
Compared
terms
to the entire budget.
$3.6 billion. I think maybe I should adjust that question for inflation or something as well. So,
make it like $1 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 1/3.
Maybe 10 million, maybe 10 million, because it's supposed to be something that, is small, and, you can say, let's focus on this. But I think $1 million is, when you divide it amongst 230, 220 schools, that really gets small fast. So yeah, the question I was going to highlight, which is ironic because you just kind of talked about the opposite end, but Esther said students play games on Chromebooks when they should be working. Do you think Chromebooks should be removed from our schools? Alternatively, what tools should MCPS provide teachers like GoGuardian, which for those not familiar, I believe is a monitoring software for the Chromebooks, so the teachers can kind of make sure kids are using them for the right purpose. So, and then we'll start with Anuva for this one.
So in my opinion, I'm pretty sure that Lightspeed and GoGuardian already do exist. I think that's actually already a lot for teachers to have control over their students in the first place. I honestly would never really push on anything further for that. And I know that parents really might be against that. But from a student's perspective, my computer in middle school is my only form of technology. It's where I would play games on after school. It's where I would communicate with my friends with, and also it's where I would watch shows on. And to put all these restrictions on my computers on top of blocking YouTube, Netflix, and all these other sources of websites on our computers in the first place, I think along with that, adding a form of technology for teachers to stalk their students' screens is absurd. At that point, I would just say, we already have GoGuardian, we already have Lightspeed. There's no reason to push on something past that. That's my honest opinion. I'm sorry, it might not be what parents want to hear, but the truth is I'm here for the students and to represent them. And if my Chromebook is my only form of technology, then I would not want to have any further restrictions on it other than what's already there. Thank you.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, so I agree with Anuva. For some students, the Chromebook is their only form of technology. And I also think that we should not, remove Chromebooks from schools. In fact, at the middle school level, students aren't even allowed, at least when I visited North Bethesda Middle School, they were telling me how, or I think it was Captain John Middle School, they were telling me how they're not allowed to bring their Chromebook with them home, and that they have to keep it in carts at per class. And I don't know if you remember doing that in middle school, but I remember doing that in middle school, and it was so long ago that I completely forgot about that. But I think for both high schoolers and middle schoolers, they should be able to not only use their Chromebook in school, but also take it home with them. Since, like I said, it's for most students, it's sometimes their only form of technology. So I don't think we should be removing Chromebooks because, yeah, like I said, it's for some students, it's one of very few technologies. And then alternatively, oh, the question just disappeared. But I think highlighting, oh, it's back. Like Anuva said, I think right now our teachers have a lot of control over students' devices and monitoring. So I don't think we should go further than that. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I thought you were finished and then I shut it down. The question. So I just wanted. There's a few more. Well, there's a lot of comments, but let's stick to the ones that. So one person said, "Will any of these come to schools like PB? I assume is Paint Branch. My school's neglected by all of MCPS." There was one. Chromebooks should not be treated like prisoners. Unlock them up. There was another one which was no, keep the computers. So I think
agree.
And so hold on, and I don't know who wants to answer this question. If we need to pop Praneel back on, but the question I had was I know that at the elementary school level, my kids keep their Chromebooks at school and they're like on a cart or whatever. But I was under the impression that middle schoolers and high schoolers all took their Chromebooks home, or at least were allowed to if they wanted to. Is that not correct, Praneel?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I believe all of our middle and high schools have one-to-one devices. So that's where, students have a device that they can take home with them. It's not linked to the cart in school. That's from what I remember. It may be that some of our middle schools might not have one-to-one at this point. From what I remember correctly, and a big part of that is also maintenance issues with regards to Chromebook repairs and what our Chromebook technology refresh cycle is. So I know during the pandemic we definitely had one-to-one devices through for all students, and part of that is some of the technology had to be cycled out. So what I'm seeing is that certain middle schools don't have it. Again, it is very kind of dependent on what the actual maintenance looks like at the school. If there's a high turnover rate at the schools, at the middle schools, in terms of like Chromebooks are breaking a lot. That might be an issue for some schools. But I do know that every student, if they don't have access to technology at home, they have the ability to take MCPS technology home, and that's through an opt-in process. So if they don't have a laptop or a computer at home, again, they have the ability to request one from MCPS to bring home. But again, it is kind of like also a fiscal issue too, with regards to how we look at where we spend our money in terms of like it, and it's one of the reasons why it's difficult to do virtual days, right? Because we don't have one-to-one devices, which means that it becomes an equity issue when we do want to do virtual days. And so, regardless of other state legislations that are in place that prohibit us from doing virtual days. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw out there for anyone listening is that if you do not have a device that you have access to at home, you can actually, there are county programs where you can get a permanent free Chromebook from the county if your family is below certain income levels. You can get one per person. So if that's something where you don't have one at home, or you have a family member or know someone that doesn't have one, a device at home, that program is a really good one. Forget what it's actually called, but it's through the county, not MCPS, where they have that free devices. So okay, let's see. I'm gonna pop back Praneel off, and just gonna take a look at if there's any other good questions. I saw one which was let's go with this while I kind of catch up, which is what is the county spending money on that it should not be spending money on? Which I think, from my soapbox, is a very important question because everything is about limited resources, right? So when we're talking like, oh, I think this is a good idea, what we're also saying is that there's an opportunity cost, right? Because in an ideal world, we'd probably all think all these are great ideas, right? But you have to decide where the money goes and how it's spent. So, and I know this is a really tough one. I asked it to the a similar question to the adult Board of Education candidates, and several couldn't come up with something. So, it's tough to say what we should not be spending money on, especially without a lot of research. So, I guess just give it your best shot, and I'll put the question up on there. And who are we on?
Peter,
are we on you first?
I don't remember. What is the county spending money on that it should not? This is an interesting question. I think right now, I think our county could be, we can look at the budget to determine where funds need to be reallocated or redistributed in terms of infrastructure. I think also another point is we should not be spending money on infrastructure that is harming the environment. Instead, our county should be spending money on more environmentally friendly infrastructure, such as solar panels or net zero schools, because I think there is data that shows that when our county does spend money or invest in sustainable practices, it actually benefits us economically. We actually save money with using renewable energy. So I think our county should stop spending money on environmentally harming infrastructure, but instead should be focusing on making all of our schools net zero with solar panels so that we can save our energy and in return save money as well.
Okay, thank you. Anuva?
This might be a bit controversial, but my friend actually is a student at Paint Branch currently, and Paint Branch is one of the pilot schools for the current vape detectors that are made. And currently they're being expanded to all schools, but it's something I'm honestly not very for with what is going on currently with them. The truth is that I think that the amount of money that is being spent on them could be spent somewhere else, which is far more necessary, for example, with things like our bathrooms and those resources and a lot of other situations. That's my honest opinion, just with the current form and the current product that they do have for it. And the fact that they had to literally get turned off at Paint Branch after a few months of it being piloted, I just don't think it's very necessary, currently speaking, with the product that they are using. I'm emphasizing that because genuinely speaking, I think that it was an amazing idea in theory, but the way that it's being implemented and the amount of money being spent on it could be better served somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So this question is about school lunches. And after there were several follow-up people saying that's a great question. So hello, MoCo. Hi, Anuva and Peter. I've been seeing the progress you've been making. I have one important question. What should you guys do to make school lunches healthier to make sure it's healthy?
I'll start.
So, yep.
I think that's what's really important is to honestly include students in our decisions, especially when it comes to foods, making them halal, making them more accessible, vegan options, kosher options, so many different situations. And that's why I really plan on utilizing my SAC for this. My SAC, if you guys don't know, if I am SMOB, it's my SMOB Advisory Council, where I can have as many students as I want join. And I would like to host taste testing events and things like that for students that are really, really inclined, and this is very important to them, so that they get a say in what they want to have. I really want to ensure, honestly speaking, that the Board of Education is serving the students and not the other way around. And I think the best way to do that is really make sure that you guys are the ones making the decisions that you want. You guys are the ones trying out, testing what you want. I know Sammy Saeed in the past, if any of you remember him, he was an amazing SMOB. And what he did is he hosted these food testing events to see what students liked and what students were more inclined to want. From there, you work with the teachers union, you work with the food union, with the Board of Education, and a lot of other different situations to make whatever you want happen. And again, this can only happen, though, if I get the students' ideas and what the students want when it comes to healthier lunches. Thank you.
All right, Peter. Yep.
Yes. So as someone who's actually testified twice to the Board of Education on improving our school lunches, met with the Director of Food and Nutrition Services, have done a tour of the Division of Food and Nutrition Services. I've worked really closely with our school meals program in MCPS. And what I've learned is that in order for items, one, it takes a while for our lunch line to see improvements. But two, in order for our, we say improve school lunches, make them better. But when we say that, we need to be very, very specific. So I plan on, being specific and offering specific examples of where in the lunch line we can make improvements. For example, our rice and our potatoes are usually not the most flavorful and aren't the most flavorful recipes. So I think I've often heard from students that they don't like the rice or the potatoes, and I think we need, I plan to bring that up to the Division of Food and Nutrition Services so that we can find a different recipe for those menu items. In addition, our pizza is oftentimes too greasy, and I think that can be very unhealthy for students. So ensuring that the DFNS is limiting grease on pizza, and then finally making sure that our produce, our fruits and vegetables are fresh and organic, because oftentimes we don't see that, and oftentimes they're wrapped in plastic as well. So I think when we talk about making school lunches better, we need to be very, very specific in terms of what items in the lunch line need to be changed and improved. In addition, when we do introduce a new menu item, such as maybe a new rice recipe, we need to do taste testings at schools, elementary, middle, and high schools to see, to get honest opinion. And I think from our younger students, we'll definitely receive a lot of honest feedback on a new recipe that gets introduced. So being specific with what improvements we want to make, and then increasing taste testings and surveys, I think we can see further improvements in the lunch line.
All right, thank you. And we're starting to get some great questions, so I'm just going to keep rolling with the questions online. So Alex said, hello, Anuva, Peter, Praneel, and Jason. Thank you for your time. I do have a general question for all of you. Do you believe grading is consistent across the county? In other words, does an A or B at one school represent the same level of work as at another? If so, what makes you feel that way? If not, do you think consistency is important, and what can be done to achieve it? And I'm going to put it up there so that, most of it is on there. But I can reread if you all need me. I think Peter's first.
Yeah.
You got the question?
I can, thank you, Alex, for this question. And this is very important because we are in the middle of the board discussing the new grading policy. And in it, they talk about, what you're kind of saying is grade calculations and inconsistencies in terms of grading or stuff like that. To answer your question, do you believe grading is consistent across the county? I do think our grading and calculations are consistent across the county, but I'll tell you what I think isn't consistent, and that's our deadlines and then also reassessments. I think for schools and even between teachers at one school, we see one teacher will assign a deadline like at the end of the quarter for an assignment and be very lenient with accepting assignment. And then another teacher at that same school being very stringent on, okay, in 2 days, this assignment is due, or in a week, this assignment is due. There are, high inconsistencies among deadlines and due dates, in addition to like how like reassessments are done. Like some teachers allow reassessments for unit exams only, but then some teachers allow reassessments for check quizzes or like checkpoints only. So there are inconsistencies among grading, among reassessments and deadlines is what I see. And then is there a second part of your question? So yeah, I think that pretty much answers it. I see consistency among grading, but not really in terms of reassessments and deadlines.
Not to disagree with Peter, but I actually really don't think that grading is consistent across the county at all. I mean, even from my own personal experience, growing up in 2 areas, so I have a lot of friends in different areas. I would say that we literally compare our test scores when it came to like honors English or something like that, compare the amount of work we got. And at some schools they were getting, I would say maybe 6 or 7 assignments a quarter, whereas I was getting maybe 15 in comparison. It's nowhere near the same amount of assignments, let alone deadlines, due dates. And I think honestly speaking, what AP classes do very well is that there's a set rubric on the assignments and how they should be done to prepare you for the exam. I think that's an amazing thing that's going across the county, and it's something that should be happening at every single school, which sadly it isn't. Honestly speaking, even from my own perspective, it really depends on the teacher too. Like, for example, I'm taking AP Lang this year, and all of us try to compare before the quarter which AP Lang teacher we're going to get, because you want to obviously have the easier one if you can. It sucks that it's the way it is, and I hope that we can fix this with the new grading policy and what's going on currently. But again, I am never going to be for final exams or anything of the sort, or taking away the 50% rule, because from a student's perspective, I do not want to add any more mental burden or stress to students ever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then there's a question about who knows said, should we fund the PE and gym so teachers can teach it and students have the proper equipment? I clarified. So you're asking to increase funding for the equipment in PE class, and they said yes, and how we would use the extra funding. So I'm going to leave the original question on there, but that's the clarification. So,
all right, and this is for PE teachers, but it also includes equipment, right? Too?
Yeah, I think that it was specifically maybe talking about the equipment for the gyms versus the teachers' pay.
Still a really important question. As a student athlete myself, I've swam for 10 years. I ran track for 3 years. I played basketball for a couple years in middle school. I played volleyball for a year or 2, and I did soccer for 2 years as well. And obviously speaking, equipment, without it, you're nowhere where you can be. The truth is, you can see it depending on the schools in the county. You can see it especially at a high school level, which schools receive more funding, especially with their boosters, which ones, honestly speaking, get to go to the places that they want to and don't have to raise the money on their own, or which ones have better equipment. And that needs to change immediately. And I hope that with the new boundary studies, and along with that, if I am SMOB, I really do plan on creating equitable and accessible booster clubs at every single school to help fund these equipments and ensure that, as a student athlete myself, no other student athlete feels disadvantaged. And tying that back into the PE and gym teachers as well, a lot of the times, even speaking from my own experience, the basketballs we used, the soccer balls we used, the swim practice, any of that equipment that we used came from the gyms, reused materials, and reused resources. That's why I want to further that again when it comes to creating that proper equipment with our booster clubs. And I am so for funding this as a student athlete as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can also answer part of this question. Like Anuva, I've also, kind of grown up with sports. I started when I was very, very little, like 2 or 3, playing soccer, and then just for the rest of my life, have been playing tennis once or twice a week, even playing varsity tennis in high school. And I know how important gym equipment is in terms of, athletes and our gym and PE programs. I think I do support increased funding for proper equipment for PE and gym, but also I think it's important to recognize that a lot of this funding in terms of, athletics programs and sports games come from boosters. And, with a very important boundary study underway, boosters will play a big role in conversations. We see that in our county. Some neighborhoods are, some of the more affluent neighborhoods are grouped together compared to lower income neighborhoods. And I think we need to, when we are looking at this boundary study, making sure that boundaries are drawn in a way that is equitable for schools and for funding their athletics programs and PE programs as well. So I think booster clubs play a big role in proper funding for these programs.
Okay, thank you both. All right, so we've got a couple more questions coming through, and I have one more question that I want to ask, but I'm going to do a couple more of the comments. So Ricky Ribeiro, who is actually a guest on our show as well, who is the PTA president of Kennedy High School. Question for the SMOB candidates: safety and security concerns have been raised for the past several years. Former SMOB Sami Saeed passed a safety resolution that MCPS failed to take any action on. Why do you think MCPS has failed to meaningfully address safety and security, and how will you ensure it's treated with real outcomes if elected SMOB? And we'll start with Peter.
The question is cut off, so I'm trying to find.
Yeah, it's let's see, it's 1906-11 was the timestamp.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I see it. So yeah, a great accomplishment that Sami Saeed did during his term, our 46th student member of the board, is pass a school safety resolution, which in it included a lot of advancements in the way our county tackles school safety, including an ID policy, enforcing IDs and stuff like that. But as you mentioned in the question, we see that MCPS has kind of failed to take action on a lot of the stuff outlined in Sami Saeed's resolution, one of which is the IDs. And I think it's a question in terms of how we are measuring and looking at the enforcement of IDs. Some schools have ID policies that work. Other schools, like my own, Northwest High School, we do not have an effective ID policy at all. So I think we need to look at those differences. What's working for the schools that have effective ID policies? Is it scanners? Is it, do they have more security guards or administration checking IDs? Our county has failed to kind of check and audit the way IDs have been implemented, especially in its first year. And we aren't seeing a lot of metrics in the way the ID policy has been enforced. So I think that is what I'll say to this question. I'm just trying to read what got cut off. Why do you MCPS has
I
failed?
think it says meaningfully address safety concerns.
Meaningfully address safety and security, and how will you ensure it's treated with real outcomes? Yeah, so I think I kind of touched on this question. We need to better measure the way certain things in the resolution have been enforced, such as metrics for the ID policy.
Okay, thanks, Anuva.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a PTSA president from Kennedy, correct, right?
Yep. Yeah, he was on our last, was it? I think it was actually the last episode, so.
All right, so the reason why I'm asking this is because, obviously speaking, as a DCC student who attends Montgomery Blair High School, Kennedy is really close to home, and I have a lot of students from Kennedy, in fact, like the president and the VP that are part of my own organization, who have always been for and always brought up their safety and security concerns, especially when it comes to Kennedy. In fact, there have been multiple overdoses from Kennedy students in the past in MCPS, and that's why something I've always pushed on, which I'm sure former SMOB Sammy Saeed did too with his safety resolution, and so many other SMOBs in the past have, along with even Praneel training security guards in Narcan, is that making Narcan accessible to all students. The second thing is also the ID policy. At Kennedy, for example, from the students that I have talked to there, yes, it's implemented, but I honestly don't think it's doing enough. The truth is that I can't tell you the amount of times that I've called my friends from Kennedy and they've been like, I'm in a shelter in place drill, or I have another thing going on like that. And the truth is that I think, honestly speaking, we need to start to address our concerns when it comes to our safety and security guards, not just the ID policy. There shouldn't be 2 security guards for 1,000 students. That is absurd numbers when it's 1 security guard for 500 kids. There is no way in shape or form a student is saying that they're feeling safe. I've been to countless middle schools, for example, like Earl B. Wood Middle School, where there's 2 security guards for over 1,000 kids. That is not fair at all. And I think that this needs to be changed immediately. And that's what I plan on doing as SMOB. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. So this next question, I'm not going to put up because they named a specific student, but it's related to bullying. How can we prevent bullying and students from getting hurt? Because it's very common in my school. So you start.
How you can prevent it?
Yep. How can we prevent bullying in students? So I would guess, or I would say from a policy perspective versus, as a student.
All right. A really big thing I will say is that when it comes to bullying or any of these hate incidents and things like that, I think the biggest issue is that students don't feel comfortable enough about speaking out. And that's why at all times I will have an anonymous form open for students to fill out so that their concerns and their priorities are being listened to, and also immediate action is happening towards them. The other thing also, when it comes down to it, I think that a big thing people try to assume is that bullies are just doing this out of a place of malice, when in reality, there's probably a lot of external factors, such as their home life, which are making them more inclined to be more aggressive. And that's why I'm really, really, really big for and pushing on restorative justice, not giving these kids a suspension or expulsion or detention. Instead, honestly speaking, sitting down with them, talking with them, not just assuming, actually giving them a choice and giving them not only the comfort of safety, but also letting them know that it's equal parts. We're not just villainizing them. We understand, and we really want to make sure that their voices are being heard as well. Thank you.
All right, Peter?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yep. Yeah, sorry. Let's see. It was preventing. How can we prevent bullying and students from getting hurt? Because it's very common in my school.
Yeah, and there was a question earlier about hate speech, and I think my policies with hate speech and bullying kind of align. One, training for teachers, making sure teachers and bystanders act when they see signs of bullying and harassment, or see signs of hate speech and bias as well. So training is a great first step. In addition to restorative justice, making sure that when there is a bullying or a conflict, both parties are brought together and the conflict is resolved. And then also education is a big thing. Teaching, from an early age, how to be inclusive and welcoming for students. And I think those 3 ideas, training, education, and recognizing signs of bullying can go a long way in terms of preventing some of the bullying that we see. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I think I want to end this at like 7:30 at the latest. I'm not going to, I know everyone's got stuff to do. There's one more question I want to ask. I got one question from a text message, and we may have question or room for like one more question from the comments. So the last question that I'm going to ask from my questions is, what is the most pressing issue at your school, and how do you think that differs from schools in other parts of the county? All right, so we start with Peter.
Yeah, so I think it's important when someone's running for SMOB to ask why they're running. And my answer to that question is because of a previous incident that happened at my school. So obviously for the past 5 years, I've kind of been involved in student advocacy. I was SGA president of my middle school, and now I currently sit as SGA vice president of my high school. I co-founded my own, student-led environmental nonprofit, MoCo. I have a lot of experience, and SMOB was kind of always something that's been in the back of my mind. But when a recent incident happened at my school, where a student actually brought a weapon to school, it really made me wake up and realize that a lot of our schools are vulnerable. And I think my school and there are of course other schools across the county have experienced the safety incidents that happen far too often across our county and even across our nation. And that personal experience of having someone bring that weapon to school really made me wake up and want to step up and run for SMOB to ensure that our county is prioritizing students and prioritizing the lives of students, so no one feels uncomfortable or has to fear for their life when they are at school. So that's why I'm running. That's why I'm here, to keep you, me, and all 160,000 students safe. And some of my ideas include better enforcing the ID policy at all schools across the county. I know we've talked about that plenty of times during this panel today. Hiring more security guards for schools that need them, especially our middle schools. And then also investing and looking into piloting certain security technology at schools. Because I think if we can invest and look into this technology, it can work to ensure that guns and strangers do not have a place on the school campus. So that's a big reason why I'm running. That's an issue that was really alarming that happened at my school, and it's why I decided to step up and run for SMOB.
All right, thank you. Anuva?
Can you remember the question? Was it what's the biggest concern at my school?
Yeah, what's the most pressing issue at your school, and how do you think that differs from schools in other parts of the county?
Okay. Well, obviously speaking, a bit of background. I know I mentioned it briefly earlier why I'm running in the first place. And the truth is, it's for every single person I've ever met up until this point. It's for every single conversation, DM, follow I've had, anything of that sort. Students bringing up their bathrooms, bringing up their safety concerns, bringing up their menstrual hygiene products, anything of that sort, even their food, for example. It's for that reason, and that's why I'm here today, to speak up for those students. It's for the friend who sadly passed away and is not here today to speak up for himself, and that's why I'm here. And that's why what I would also say my most pressing concern at my school, actually, funnily enough, has to do with our bathrooms and our safety concerns too. So luckily, none of our bathrooms are locked at Blair, for example, but that's because we have no doors in the first place, let alone mirrors, for them to be blocked in the first place. That's a huge thing that I want to improve, especially for my own Blazers, is getting us our doors back, and for many middle school students, getting them their mirrors back. Along with that, another huge concern is regarding safety as well, and fixing that security guard to student ratio. Frankly speaking, 2 security guards for 1,000 kids is not enough. That's the truth. Honestly speaking, there's no way a kid's going to say they're safe when it's 1 security guard for 500 kids. And I attribute a big reason for the fact that my friend is not here today anymore, because there was no attention being served towards him. No one is ever paying attention to what was going on around him, and that is a huge reason why I think that sadly he's not here to speak up for himself. I'm so grateful beyond words. I'm so grateful to be here today, to be able to speak up, be in this interview in the first place for the people that can't. And genuinely speaking, despite my school having very odd concerns and very specific concerns, I hope that my entire policy can address students across the county and truly help them. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. I think I'm going to do one more question that I got via text message, and then we'll go let you do a kind of final, minute or two speech, closing statement sort of thing. So the question that I got was that it seems like a lot of your policies are pretty similar, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but what is something that you feel differentiates yourself from the other one?
I start, right? Thank you for asking this. So obviously speaking, I think, if you've looked throughout our campaigns, you'll see that they're sort of slowly morphing into being similar. But what I will say is something that I pushed on since the beginning, since my first post, is a mental health period. I think that, honestly speaking, being in a program myself, I'm exhausted, and along with that, doing sports after school, I have practice every single day, and then I have a quiz or test the next day, let alone APs coming up. If I had a period of time every single week to just chill and relax, I would take advantage of it to the fullest. The second thing is I've always pushed on for my middle schoolers since day one. You can see it on my website. You can see it throughout my posts, is that I pushed on YouTube being unblocked. It's a resource that I feel like a lot of students need and could take advantage of as a non-instructional terms, and it's something that I want to make happen. The third thing I've always pushed on, which other people have not in the past, is making fentanyl strips accessible to all students. I think that it would work as great precedents for students in the future to make Narcan accessible. And the truth is, honestly speaking, if I could have prevented my friend's overdose, I would have done so. But sadly, I can't. And that's why I want to help and ensure that I can prevent any future ones from occurring. Thank you.
Yeah. So like Anuva kind of mentioned, a lot of our priorities are very, very similar. I guess to kind of list a few, I have certain ideas in terms of how I want to tackle communication and representation with students. So for communication, I plan on bringing back the monthly SMOB video minute and the monthly SMOB newsletter so that each month students are aware and are informed in terms of what I'm working on the board, and every student knows what's going on, ways that they can have their opinion heard. I'm also proud to have been a very big champion for school safety, having personal experience with school safety incidents at my school. I've witnessed and experienced the dangers that school safety poses to schools and students all across the county. And I'm a huge champion in terms of looking into and exploring security technology. So, for example, something that I've heard come up in conversations with executives, MCPS executives, is the idea of weapon detection systems. So these wouldn't be metal detectors, but they would be weapon detection systems that are stationed at entrances. And these are the things you walk in and out of at sports games or concerts that use AI to detect the shape of a weapon. Now, this is very new technology, meaning I think it should be piloted first at certain schools. So piloted just means to test out at certain schools to see if this is effective and useful technology. And so that's one thing I really want the county to explore and look into. Another thing that I've been a champion for is for our middle schoolers to be able to use their personal devices during lunch. So for example, their phones or their Chromebooks or their headphones. I think lunch is it's your downtime, it's your time to relax. So that's something I've been advocating for throughout my term, and something I plan to continue advocating for with the seat at the board table.
All right, thank you both. So what we're gonna do is give each a minute or two to kind of some closing statements. You can give, the information of where to find more, your website, your Instagram, whatever you'd like. And then we'll close up here. So I guess we start with Peter, just to keep doing what we're doing. So go ahead.
Yeah, so to kind of close out, thank you again. for organizing this town hall today. I greatly enjoyed answering your questions. These were, I don't think, questions that we get asked often in terms of absenteeism and grading policy, but these are all very important issues that the next SMOB will assume in office. To kind of give you a little background in terms of who I am as a person, I got started in student advocacy and student government in 7th grade. It was during the height of COVID. I was stuck at home, didn't really know what to do with my time, and I stumbled upon an email from my SGA advisor that encouraged students to join the SGA, and I did. I spontaneously decided to join my school's SGA in 7th grade and run for SGA secretary, and even making a rap for my first campaign video. But I really got involved in 7th grade, and SGA opened my eyes to just student advocacy as a whole. And throughout the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to work closely with the past 4 SMOBs, Hana Aluni, Arvin Kim, Sami Saeed, and now our current SMOB, Praneel Suvarna, and work closely with their work and be admired by their work. And SMOB was always something I thought I could never do, or that's, something that's so far away. And now I'm on this call as one of the SMOB finalists, and it's honestly truly a dream come true. And to think that I have the opportunity to be on the board and advocate for issues that I've been following along for the past 5 years is really an honor. And I'm really grateful and lucky to be in this position. And I really just have admired, visiting schools, walking into a cafeteria and people, screaming or running to take a picture with me or sharing their concerns about the issues that they face, and just the excitement and the energy coming from students and stuff like that has truly been admirable. And I feel like the luckiest person on earth, honestly, to have this position and to be able to have a seat on the board. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity. But honestly, I know whatever the outcome of this election, MCPS is in wonderful hands. We have 2 amazing small candidates.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm just honestly really happy to be here, really grateful to have this opportunity. And that's just a little bit about me. So thank you again for inviting me on this call, moderately MoCo, and I appreciate all of your questions.
I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet because I know we're trying to wrap up by 7:30. So
I mean, go ahead. It's not a hard stop, so go ahead. Take what time you want.
Okay. Well, I think I've talked a lot about my policies throughout this entire conversation. I just want to finally say thank you again for being here. I'm so incredibly grateful, obviously, to be able to speak up for the students that never got that voice, to be able to be here today to conduct this interview. And obviously speaking, I could talk about my leadership. I've been advocating for students' rights for 5 years now, but I think genuinely speaking, whatever happens beyond this election, I know it's going to work out regardless, and I'm never going to stop advocating for what I believe in and what I truly want to happen for this county. I think that our county is amazing, but there's a lot of things that could be fixed, and I truly do believe that no matter what, every single like, DM, follow, conversation I've had in person, your concerns are being heard, and I promise I will try my hardest to make sure that whatever you guys want is happening, because in the end, the board is supposed to serve you, not the other way around. And that is what the SMOB is going to do. And that is what I promise I will do as SMOB. Thank you. And thank you again for having me also.
Yes. Thank you, Anuva, Peter, and Praneel, all 3 of you. It's been great getting to know you all more. And I really appreciate you coming on. So I just want to, throw a shout out. So it's Wednesday, April 23rd is the election. Make sure you're in school today, right?
You can vote online. There should be a link in your student email, and it'll be open from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Yeah, so ballot credentials will be dropped the night before, and then the ballot will open at 7:30 on the 23rd. And you can vote from anywhere as long as you have your ballot credentials in your email. So just be on the lookout in your email. Students should be getting reminders already about staying on the lookout and some updates. So just to
and if you're a senior, you can also vote.
Don't forget that.
When I visit schools, seniors come up to me, they're like, "Oh, I would vote for you, but I'm a senior." But I'm like, "No, you can vote." So if you're a senior, make sure you vote. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks so much. Just I'll throw a little shout out for my page as well. You can follow Moderately MoCo on any social media, literally all of them. If you ever have a issue, and this goes for the three of you, but as well as just any person out there, we are always taking, issues seriously. And if you want to write something, an opinion piece, we'll publish it. So, we're there for the people, and that's kind of what we do. And you can check out MoCo Mike Live, the podcast, which this will be on episode 5. It'll be, published everywhere you get your podcasts as well. And we'll be posting replays throughout the week. So with that, I'm going to end the stream and just say, thank you again, everyone, the candidates, Praneel, and also everyone commenting. Well, most of everyone commenting. But yes, thanks so much, and we'll see you.